The warning commander Zextai stood before the great council of worlds, his forearms trembling as he delivered the most important message in galactic history. The massive chamber fell silent as thousands of alien representatives from across the galaxy leaned forward to hear his words. "Honored council members," Zextai began, his voice echoing through the crystal dome that housed the most powerful beings in the known universe. "I come before you today with a warning that may save us all from extinction." The Vorthan delegate, a creature that looked like a walking tree made of pure energy, sparked with annoyance. "Commander, we have fought and conquered over 3,000 worlds. What could possibly threaten the might of the Galactic Empire?" Zextai's eyes darkened. He had seen things that would haunt him forever. There is a small blue planet on the outer rim of the Milky Way. The inhabitants call it Earth. The species that lives there, they call themselves humans. A wave of laughter rippled through the council. The Krillian ambassador, whose species had destroyed entire solar systems, clicked his massive claws together in amusement. "Humans, we've never even heard of them. They must be primitives if they haven't made contact with us." "That's exactly what makes them so dangerous," Zextai replied, his voice growing urgent. 3 months ago, I led a scouting mission to Earth. What I saw there changed everything I thought I knew about warfare, about survival, about what it truly means to fight. The council chamber buzzed with curious whispers. In all their centuries of conquest, no single species had ever given them pause. They had faced warriors who could crush mountains with their bare hands, creatures that could survive in the vacuum of space, and beings of pure energy that could bend reality itself. What could these humans possibly do that was so special? Zextai activated his holographic display, showing images of Earth from space. The planet looked peaceful, covered in blue oceans and white clouds. "Don't let its beauty fool you," he warned. "This planet has seen more violence and destruction than any world we've ever encountered. And the humans, they've done it all to themselves." The display changed, showing scenes of human history. Ancient battlefields covered in blood, massive metal machines rolling across landscapes, destroying everything in their path. Cities reduced to rubble, mushroom clouds rising into the sky. For thousands of years, humans have fought non-stop wars against their own kind, Zextai continued. They've created weapons that could destroy their entire planet multiple times over. They've survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and countless wars that should have wiped them out completely. The ethereal prime, a being of pure thought energy, projected its confusion. If they're so violent and destructive, surely they've destroyed themselves by now. Primitive species always do. Zextai's expression grew grim. That's what makes them unique. Every time they face extinction, they don't just survive, they come back stronger. They learn from every defeat, adapt to every challenge, and turn their greatest weaknesses into their most powerful weapons. He showed more images. Humans in spacesuits floating among the stars, massive space stations orbiting their planet, robots landing on distant worlds. In just a few hundred years, they went from fighting with simple metal weapons to splitting atoms and reaching for the stars. Their technology advances faster than any species we've ever seen. The council members began to look uncomfortable. The Zephyrian War Master, whose people had conquered half the galaxy through pure military might, leaned forward on his throne of bone. "You speak of their history, Commander, but what did you actually see on your mission? What makes you think they pose a threat to us?" Zextai's hands shook as he prepared to show them the most terrifying footage he had ever recorded. "We thought we would study them from a safe distance, learn about their weaknesses, plan our invasion strategy." But something went wrong. The chamber fell completely silent. Every being in the room could sense the fear radiating from the battle-hardened commander. Zextai had faced the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy without flinching. What could have broken him so completely? "We were detected," Zextai whispered. "Somehow these primitive humans discovered our cloaked ships. They tracked us across 3 solar systems, and when they finally caught up to us..." He paused, his voice breaking. "They showed us what real fury looks like." The holographic display flickered to life, showing grainy footage from Zextai's ship. What the council saw next would change the course of galactic history forever. But before the footage could play, alarms began blaring throughout the council chamber. Red warning lights flashed as automated voices announced unknown vessels detected at the system perimeter. Fleet composition unknown. Warning. Unauthorized entry into restricted space. Zexthai's face went pale. He looked up at the massive view screen that showed space around their hidden council world. Hundreds of sleek silver ships were dropping out of hyperspace, surrounding the planet completely. No, he breathed. It can't be. They followed me here, the Krillian ambassador roared in anger. Impossible. This location is protected by quantum shields and temporal barriers. No one can track ships here. But as the council watched in growing horror, the unknown vessels began transmitting a signal. The massive speakers in the chamber crackled to life, and a voice unlike any they had ever heard began to speak. It was calm, controlled, but underneath the politeness was something that made every creature in the room feel a primal fear they had never experienced before. "Citizens of the Galactic Council," the human voice said, echoing through the chamber. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We believe you have something that belongs to us. Commander Zexthai, we've come to take you home." First contact goes wrong. 3 months earlier, Commander Zexthai's scouting fleet had arrived at Earth with complete confidence. The 12 ships in his armada were invisible to primitive technology, armed with weapons that could crack planets, and crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. "Begin standard reconnaissance protocol," Zexthai ordered from the bridge of his flagship. "I want full scans of their technology, military capabilities, and population centers. This should take no more than a few hours." His tactical officer, Lieutenant Krival, activated the scanning arrays. "Sir, the most advanced technology appears to be primitive chemical rockets and basic satellites. They're not even a Type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history." Zexthai nodded, already thinking about the commendation he would receive for adding another world to the Empire. Earth would provide billions of new slaves and vast resources to fuel their endless expansion. The humans would be grateful to serve a superior civilization. But something was wrong. The scans were taking much longer than expected. "Lieutenant, what's the delay?" Zexthai asked. Krival's tentacles writhed with confusion as he stared at his instruments. "Sir, I'm detecting some unusual readings. These humans have built thousands of satellites, but they're not just for communication. Many of them appear to be watching, constantly scanning space with multiple detection methods." "Impossible. No primitive species has ever developed such extensive surveillance networks." "There's more, sir. I'm detecting over 15,000 nuclear weapons on the planet's surface. That's enough destructive power to render their world uninhabitable several times over." Zexthai laughed. "Typical primitive behavior. They'll destroy themselves long before they become a threat to anyone else." But as the hours passed, the scans revealed more disturbing information. The humans had military installations on every continent. Their weapons were crude compared to galactic technology, but they existed in staggering numbers. Millions of soldiers, tens of thousands of aircraft, fleets of warships covering their oceans. "Sir," Krival reported nervously, "I'm also detecting extensive underground facilities. Deep bunkers, hidden research laboratories, stockpiles of weapons and supplies. It's like they're constantly preparing for war. With who? They haven't even left their solar system yet." "With each other, sir. My analysis shows they've been in almost continuous conflict for their entire recorded history. They have over 200 separate nations, and most of them maintain standing armies even during peacetime." Zexthai was beginning to feel uneasy, but he pushed the feeling aside. No matter how warlike they were, primitive technology was still primitive. His ships could destroy their entire planet from orbit without taking a single casualty. Then the impossible happened. "Sir," Krival's voice was filled with panic. "I'm detecting active scanning beams targeting our ships." "That's impossible. We're cloaked. The scans are penetrating our shields. They're using multiple detection methods simultaneously. Gravitational sensors, neutrino detectors, quantum field analyzers." "Sir, they know exactly where we are." Zexthai felt his blood turn cold. The cloaking technology that had allowed them to conquer 3,000 worlds was useless against these supposedly primitive humans. On the main view screen, alerts began flashing from monitoring stations across Earth. The human governments were mobilizing their militaries. Ancient weapons that had been sleeping in silos began powering up. Warships that had been docked in peaceful harbors started their engines and headed to sea. "How long have they known we were here?" Zexthai demanded. "According to these readings, sir, they detected us the moment we entered their solar system." A new alarm sounded. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." Zexthai's hands trembled as he ordered the message to be played. A female human voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfectly clear Galactic standard, a language that should have been completely unknown to them. "Unknown vessels. This is General Martinez of the United Earth Defense Command. You are in violation of Earth's territorial space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The bridge fell silent. How did they know Galactic standard? How had they learned to penetrate their cloaking technology? And why did they sound so calm and confident when facing ships that could destroy their entire world? Zexthai made the decision that would haunt him forever. Instead of retreating and reporting back to the Council, his pride took over. These primitives needed to learn their place in the Galactic Order. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "This is Commander Zexthai of the Galactic Empire. You will surrender your planet immediately, or we will take it by force." The response came instantly, and the tone made every warrior on the bridge step backward in instinctive fear. "Commander Zexthai," General Martinez replied, and now her voice carried an edge that cut through space itself. "You just made the biggest mistake of your very short remaining life." What happened next changed everything Zexthai thought he knew about warfare. The humans didn't launch primitive missiles or deploy crude energy weapons. Instead, they did something no other species had ever done in the history of galactic conquest. They disappeared. Every human military installation, every weapon, every soldier, they all vanished from the scanners as if they had never existed. The cities remained. The civilian populations continued their daily lives. But the military forces of Earth had somehow become completely invisible to the most advanced detection technology in the galaxy. "Sir," Krival whispered. "Where did they go?" Before Zexthai could answer, his ship shuddered under impact. Then another, then a dozen more. Weapons that shouldn't exist were striking his vessels with pinpoint accuracy, but the humans firing them were completely invisible. "Shields at 60%. His tactical officer reported. "Make that 40%. "Sir, they're using our own quantum frequencies against us." Through the chaos, General Martinez's voice remained calm and controlled. "Commander, you're experiencing a demonstration of what we call asymmetric warfare. You brought 12 ships to conquer our world. We brought every human who ever lived, died, and learned from our mistakes. That's impossible," Zexthai roared. "The dead can't fight." The human's laughter was the most terrifying sound he had ever heard. "You clearly don't understand humans, Commander. Every battle we've ever fought, every war we've ever lost, every mistake that ever killed us, we remember it all. We study our failures, we learn from our defeats, and we pass that knowledge to the next generation. When you challenged Earth, you didn't just challenge the humans alive today. You challenged every human warrior who ever lived." The attacks intensified. Zexthai's fleet, which had conquered entire star systems, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see, using tactics they had never encountered, with technology that defied everything they knew about warfare. "Sir, we need to retreat," Krival pleaded as another ship exploded in a bowl of flame. But when they tried to jump to hyperspace, nothing happened. The humans had somehow disabled their faster-than-light drives without even boarding their ships. "You're not leaving," General Martinez informed them. "Not until you understand what you've awakened. Earth didn't become our home because we were the strongest species on the planet. We became the dominant species because we never, ever give up. And now you've threatened our home, our families, our children. Do you have any idea what that means?" The hunt begins. The attack on Zexthai's fleet lasted exactly 17 minutes. In that time, 11 of his 12 ships were completely destroyed, their crews vaporized by weapons that struck from impossible angles with devastating precision. Only his flagship survived, and that was clearly intentional. "Damage report." Zexthai gasped, pulling himself up from the deck where the impacts had thrown him. All weapons offline. Shields completely drained. Engines operating at 12% capacity. Krival reported, his voice hollow with shock. Sir, we never even saw them coming. The communications array crackled to life without being activated. General Martinez's voice filled the bridge once again, but now it carried a tone that made every surviving crew member feel like prey being stalked by a predator. Commander Zexthai, your fleet has been neutralized. Your crews are dead. Your mission has failed. But we're going to let you live, and we're going to let you leave. Do you know why? Zexthai said nothing. His pride, his confidence, his entire understanding of warfare had been shattered in less than 20 minutes. Because we want you to go back to your Galactic Council and deliver a message, the general continued. Tell them that Earth is under human protection. Tell them that any attack on our world will be considered an act of war against every human being who has ever lived, who lives now, or who will ever live. And tell them that if they're foolish enough to try again, we won't just defend ourselves. We'll hunt down every ship, every world, every last member of their empire until they understand what it truly means to face human fury. You're bluffing, Zexthai managed to whisper. You can't leave your world. You don't have faster-than-light travel. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any threat. Commander, General Martinez said finally, what makes you think we haven't already left? Before he could process what that meant, his ship's navigation systems activated on their own. A course was being automatically plotted, not back to Imperial space, but to a seemingly random location deep in uncharted territory. You will proceed to these coordinates, the general ordered. There's something there we want you to see. Consider it your education in why challenging humans is the last mistake anyone ever makes. Zexthai wanted to refuse, but his ship was no longer under his control. The humans had somehow taken command of his vessel's systems remotely. His flagship began moving toward the mysterious coordinates, its course locked and unchangeable. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of traveling through empty space while his crew struggled to repair their damaged systems. 3 days of wondering what the humans had planned for them. 3 days of growing dread as they realized they were being followed by ships they couldn't detect. When they finally arrived at the coordinates, what they found defied everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. Floating in space before them was a massive structure that looked like it had been carved from a single asteroid. But this wasn't natural rock. It was clearly artificial, covered in docking bays, sensor arrays, and weapon emplacements. The construction was crude by Imperial standards, but the sheer size of it was breathtaking. Sir, Krival whispered, that structure is over 3 kilometers long. How did they build something like that without us knowing? More importantly, Zexthai replied grimly, how long has it been here? Their answer came when they were pulled into one of the docking bays by tractor beams they couldn't resist. As their ship settled onto the deck, Zexthai saw human soldiers waiting for them, but these weren't the same humans they had encountered at Earth. These soldiers wore armor that looked like it had been cobbled together from dozens of different technologies. Some pieces looked familiar: Imperial alloys, Krillian energy shields, Vorthan crystal matrices. But they had been modified, improved, combined in ways that no single species had ever attempted. The airlock opened, and a human woman entered their ship. She was tall, with steel-gray hair and eyes that held the weight of countless battles. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but carried an authority that made even battle-hardened Imperial warriors step back. Commander Zexthai, I'm Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Deep Space Fleet. Welcome to Outpost Prometheus. That's impossible, Zexthai protested. Humans don't have deep space technology. Admiral Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Commander, you're suffering from a common mistake that most galactic species make. You assume that because we haven't made formal contact, we haven't been watching and learning. She gestured for them to follow her off the ship. The docking bay was bustling with activity. Humans working alongside captured Imperial technology, reverse engineering weapons and systems, improving on designs that had taken other species centuries to develop. For the past 50 years, We've been tracking Imperial movements throughout this sector, Chen explained as she led them deeper into the station. Every battle you've fought, every world you've conquered, every piece of technology you've deployed, we've been watching it all. They passed through corridors lined with displays showing tactical analyses of Imperial fleet movements, psychological profiles of alien species, and detailed schematics of captured enemy vessels. You see, Commander, humans have a unique talent that most species lack. We learn from watching others fight. Every mistake your enemies made, we've studied. Every weakness they exploited, we've catalogued. Every victory you achieved, we've figured out how to turn into a defeat. They reached a massive chamber filled with holographic displays showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Imperial worlds, blue dots showed species that had been conquered, and green dots indicated free worlds that had never been contacted, but scattered throughout. The display were yellow dots that made Zexthai's blood run cold. Those yellow markers represent human observation posts, Admiral Chen explained. We've been out here longer than you think, Commander. Watching, learning, preparing. Preparing for what? Zexthai asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. For the day someone was foolish enough to threaten Earth, Chen replied. We've seen what your empire does to species that can't defend themselves. We've watched you enslave entire civilizations, strip worlds of their resources, and destroy anyone who dares to resist. She activated another display showing footage of Imperial conquests. Cities burning, populations fleeing, entire species driven to extinction. Every atrocity you've committed, we've recorded. Every innocent life you've taken, we've remembered. And now that you've threatened our home, all of those debts have come due. The display changed to show Imperial fleet movements in real time, but many of the ships were now marked with flashing red warnings. Sir, Creevil gasped, pointing at the display. Those are our supply convoys. And patrol fleets! The warnings indicate they're under attack. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. The moment you attacked our forces at Earth, we activated every sleeper cell, every observation post, every hidden asset we've placed throughout Imperial space over the past 50 years. Your empire is currently experiencing simultaneous strikes on over 300 targets. That's impossible, Zexthai roared. We would have detected infiltrators. Would you? Chen asked quietly. Tell me, Commander, in all your conquests, did you ever bother to count how many refugees escaped? How many survivors fled to other worlds? How many conquered peoples you assumed were too broken to fight back? The horrible truth began to dawn on Zexthai. You've been recruiting them. The species we conquered have been very eager to learn human tactics, Chen confirmed. It turns out that when you show enslaved peoples how to fight back effectively, they're very motivated students. The display updated again, showing more Imperial positions under attack. But these weren't random strikes. They were coordinated, surgical, designed to cripple the Empire's ability to respond to threats. This is just the beginning, Admiral Chen said softly. You wanted to see human fury, Commander? You're about to witness what happens when 4.5 billion years of evolution produces a species that refuses to quit. The Empire burns. The reports kept coming in, each one more devastating than the last. Zexthai watched in horror as the holographic display showed the systematic dismantling of an empire that had ruled the galaxy. For over 10,000 years, Imperial Fleet Command at Zarian Prime is offline, a human technician reported. The resistance cell there used our infiltration protocols to disable their quantum communication arrays. Confirmed strike on the Krillian shipyards, another voice called out. Local survivors report that a single human operative convinced the enslaved Zephyrian workers to sabotage the fusion cores. 12 dreadnoughts destroyed while still under construction. Admiral Chen stood calmly in the center of the chaos, orchestrating the destruction of the most powerful military force in galactic history with the efficiency of someone organizing a dinner party. How is this possible? Zexthai demanded. We have over 50 million soldiers across 1,000 worlds. And we have something you've never encountered before, Chen replied. A species that turns every defeat into a lesson. every loss into motivation, and every enemy into a teacher. She activated a new display, showing historical footage of human conflicts. "Do you see this, Commander? This is the Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 humans held off an army of hundreds of thousands. Most species would see this as a tragic defeat. We see it as a masterclass in how a small force can delay a larger one." The display changed to show more human battles. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Civilians with improvised weapons holding off professional soldiers for nearly a month. The Battle of Britain. A tiny island nation stopping the conquest of an entire continent. The Siege of Leningrad, a city that refused to surrender even when its people were starving. "You're showing me defeats," Zexthai said, confused. "I'm showing you victories," Chen corrected. Every one of these battles was lost in the traditional sense, but each one taught us something valuable about how to fight against impossible odds, how to use our environment, how to turn enemy strengths into weaknesses, how to make every casualty count for something. The reports continued to flood in. Imperial supply lines were being severed by species that had been conquered decades ago, but had been secretly learning human guerrilla tactics. Command centers were falling to infiltrators who had spent years gaining the trust of their Imperial overseers. Entire fleets were being disabled by computer viruses designed by humans but deployed by alien resistance. Fighters, the Vorthon energy beings, are reporting massive power grid failures across their core worlds, a technician announced. It appears the human-trained crystalline collective has found a way to disrupt their quantum matrices. Kryllian defensive positions in the outer rim are going dark one by one. Another voice added. The Aquatic Coalition is using human submarine warfare tactics to attack their underwater cities. Zexthai realized that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, not just the fall of an empire, but its complete unraveling from within. Every species the Imperials had conquered, every population they had enslaved, every world they had stripped of resources had become a weapon turned against them. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "From the moment we detected your first scout ships in our solar system 50 years ago," Admiral Chen replied. "We knew this day would come eventually. No empire lasts forever, and yours was built on oppression and fear. We just had to wait for you to give us an excuse to bring it down." A priority alert flashed on the main display. The automated voice announcement made every Imperial officer on the station freeze in terror. Priority alert, Imperial Council world location compromised. Human fleet elements detected approaching the capital. "No," Zexthai breathed. "The Council world's location is the most closely guarded secret in the galaxy. It's protected by quantum shields and temporal barriers. It's impossible to find without the navigation codes." Admiral Chen turned to face him with an expression that would have made a black hole seem warm and welcoming. "Commander, you've spent this entire conversation underestimating what humans are capable of. When will you learn?" The display showed a tactical readout of the Council world's defenses. They were formidable. Energy shields that could deflect planet-killing weapons, automated defense platforms armed with reality-warping technology, fleets of Guardian ships that had never been defeated in combat. "Your defenses are impressive," Chen admitted, "but they were designed to stop conventional attacks by species that think like you do. They weren't built to handle humans." "What are you going to do?" Zexthai asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. "We're going to give your council the same choice you gave every species you conquered," Chen replied. "Surrender or be destroyed. The only difference is, when we win, we're not going to enslave anyone. We're going to set them free." The display updated to show human ships dropping out of hyperspace around the Council world. But these weren't the crude, cobbled-together vessels Zexthai had expected. These were sleek, advanced warships that incorporated the best technology from dozens of conquered species, improved with human ingenuity and built with human determination. "Impossible," Zexthai whispered. "Those ships, they're using Imperial quantum drives, Vorthon energy matrices, Kryllian shield generators, all donated by the species you conquered," Chen confirmed. "It turns out that when you free people from slavery, they're very generous with their technology." The first shots of the battle began to light up the display. But instead of the overwhelming firepower Zexthai expected, the human ships were using tactics he had never seen before. They moved in perfect coordination, like schools of fish or flocks of birds, each ship covering the other's weaknesses and exploiting every gap in the Imperial defenses. "They're not fighting like any species we've ever encountered," Kreval observed in amazement. "It's like they're thinking with a single mind." "That's because they are," Admiral Chen explained. "Humans have always been pack hunters. We work together better than any other species in the galaxy. When you attacked Earth, you didn't just challenge individual humans, you challenged our entire collective intelligence. The battle was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The human fleet moved like a living organism, adapting to every defensive measure, learning from every attack, turning the Council's own weapons against them. And behind every tactical decision was the accumulated wisdom of every human military leader who had ever lived." "You're witnessing the application of 10,000 years of human military evolution," Chen said as they watched Imperial defenses crumble. "Every great general, every brilliant tactician, every soldier who ever learned something valuable from defeat, their knowledge is being used in this battle, the Imperial fleet defending the Council. World was not just losing, it was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to predict their every move. The humans weren't just winning, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson about what happened when you threatened their home." As the last of the Council world's defenses fell, Admiral Chen turned to Zexthai with an expression of grim satisfaction. "Now, Commander, you're going to deliver that message I mentioned. You're going to tell your Council exactly what they've awakened, and you're going to make sure they understand that this is just the beginning." The reckoning back in the Council chamber. The great dome that had once housed the most powerful beings in the galaxy was now filled with the sound of alarms, panicked voices, and the unmistakable hum of human ships maintaining a perfect blockade around their hidden world. "Status report," demanded the Krillian ambassador, his massive claws scraping against his throne as he struggled to maintain his composure. "All defensive platforms are offline," reported a trembling technician. "Our Guardian fleets have been completely neutralized. The quantum shields are down, and the temporal barriers have been disabled." The Vorthan delegate's energy form flickered with barely controlled rage. "How did they find us? This location has been hidden for 10,000 years. Zexthai, who had been escorted back to the chamber under human guard, stood before the Council with his head bowed in defeat. The proud commander who had left 3 months ago was now a broken shell of his former self. "They didn't find us," he said quietly. "They've known where we were all along." The chamber erupted in protests and denials, but Admiral Sarah Chen's voice cut through the noise like a blade through flesh. "Honored Council members," she said, materializing in the center of the chamber as a holographic projection. Even as an image, her presence commanded absolute attention. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "We agreed to nothing," roared the ethereal prime. "You have invaded our sacred space. You have attacked our fleets. You have violated every law of galactic civilization." Chen's expression didn't change. "Your civilization's laws were written by conquerors to protect conquerors. They don't apply to species fighting for their survival." She gestured, and the chamber's display systems activated without permission, showing real-time footage from across the galaxy. World after world was rising in rebellion. Species long thought beaten were taking up arms, and Imperial forces were surrendering or being destroyed everywhere. "What you're seeing is the end of your empire," Chen announced calmly. "Every species you conquered, every population you enslaved, every world you stripped bare, they're all free now. And they're all armed with human military doctrine." The Zephyrian War Master slammed his bone scepter against his throne. "Impossible! We have ruled this galaxy for 10 millennia. We have the most advanced technology, the most powerful weapons. You have the most advanced technology that you bothered to develop," Chen corrected. "But you stopped innovating when you became comfortable with conquest. You stopped learning when you thought you had won. You stopped growing when you believed you were invincible." The display showed comparative analyses of Imperial technology versus human improvements. In every category, human engineering had taken existing designs and made them better, faster, more efficient. This is what happens when a species never stops learning, Chen continued. While you were busy ruling, we were busy studying. Every weapon you used, we figured out how to counter. Every tactic you employed, we developed better ones. Every strength you relied on, we found a way to turn into a weakness. You're primitives, shrieked the aquatic overlord, his tentacles writhing in agitation. You haven't even achieved interstellar civilization. Admiral Chen smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression any of them had ever seen. That's where you're wrong. We achieved interstellar civilization 50 years ago. We just chose not to announce it. The display changed to show the human deep space fleet in its full glory. Hundreds of ships, some built from scratch and others captured and improved Imperial vessels, spread across dozens of star systems. Hidden bases, observation posts, and supply depots revealed themselves throughout the galaxy. While you were busy conquering worlds and enslaving species, we were building something you never considered, Chen explained. An alliance of free peoples working together by choice rather than force. That's impossible, the Krillian ambassador insisted. Species are naturally competitive. They fight for resources. They can't work together. Most species can't, Chen agreed. But humans can. And more importantly, we can teach others how to do it too. Every species in our alliance contributes their strengths while others cover their weaknesses. The result is something more powerful than any empire. The truth was settling over the council like a weight that would crush them all. They hadn't just lost a battle or even a war. They had been outmaneuvered by a species they had never even considered a threat. What do you want? The ethereal prime finally asked. The same thing every species in this galaxy wants, Chen replied. Freedom, safety, the right to exist without fear. The chance to grow and learn and explore the universe without someone trying to conquer or enslave us. And if we refuse, the War Master demanded. Chen's image flickered as she consulted something off-screen. Then you'll share the fate of your military. According to our latest reports, Imperial resistance is collapsing across all fronts. Your fleets are surrendering en masse. Your governors are abandoning their posts. And your subject species are declaring independence faster than we can count them. The displays showed the scope of the collapse. In less than 6 hours, an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was ceasing to exist, not because it had been conquered, but because every part of it had decided it would rather be free. This is what human fury looks like, Chen continued. We don't just defeat our enemies. We make it impossible for them to threaten anyone ever again. We turn their victims into allies, their weaknesses into teaching tools, and their defeats into lessons for the entire galaxy. Zexthai stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. Council members, I've seen what they're capable of. I've watched them turn our own strengths against us. I've witnessed them inspire conquered species to fight like they never fought before. They don't just wage war, they wage hope. The chamber fell silent as the weight of their situation finally sank in. They had challenged a species that viewed every defeat as a learning opportunity, every loss as motivation to become stronger, and every threat to their home as a declaration of war against their entire existence. You have a choice to make, Admiral Chen said, her voice cutting through the silence like a judgment from the universe itself. You can surrender now, accept the dissolution of your empire and help us build something better. Or you can fight to the end and be remembered as the species that was too proud to admit when they were beaten. The Krillian ambassador's claws clicked nervously against his throne. What guarantees do we have? How do we know you won't simply replace our empire with your own? Because that's not who we are, Chen replied simply. Humans don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, and protect it. We've seen what happens when one species tries to control everyone else. It always ends in oppression, rebellion, and eventually collapse. She gestured to the displays showing the ongoing liberation of Imperial worlds. Look at what's happening out there. We're not installing human governors or claiming territory. We're helping each species establish their own governments, their own defense forces, their own futures. The Vorthon delegate's energy form pulsed with desperate calculation. But you could conquer us all. With your military capabilities, your alliance of species, your advanced tactics, you could rule the galaxy more effectively than we ever did. We could, Chen agreed. But we won't. Do you know why? The silence stretched on as every member of the council waited for an answer that would determine the fate of trillions of beings across the galaxy. Because we remember what it was like to be afraid, Chen said softly. Every human alive today carries the genetic memory of being prey animals on a world full of predators. We remember what it felt like to huddle in caves, hoping the monsters outside wouldn't find us. We remember the fear of being small and weak and vulnerable. Her expression hardened. And we have sworn that no species will ever have to feel that way again while humans exist to prevent it. The display showed footage from newly liberated worlds. Former slaves were embracing their freedom, rebuilding their societies, and working together to create something better than what they had lost. There was no sign of human occupation forces or imperial-style oppression. This is what human fury actually accomplishes, Chen explained. We don't just destroy our enemies. We make sure the conditions that created those enemies can never exist again. We break the cycles of oppression that turn victims into victimizers. The ethereal prime flickered with what might have been understanding. You're not just ending our empire. You're ending the concept of empire itself. Now you're beginning to understand. Chen nodded. We're not here to punish you for your past crimes, though they were numerous and terrible. We're here to make sure that no species ever has to choose between conquering others or being conquered themselves. Zextai looked up at the council members. His eyes filled with a wisdom that came from witnessing the impossible. Council members, I have seen the future they're offering. It's not perfect, but it's something we never gave anyone. Hope. Hope that their children will grow up free. Hope that their species will have a chance to reach for the stars without fear. Hope that the galaxy can be something more than an endless cycle of conquest and rebellion. The War Master's bone scepter clattered to the floor as his massive frame sagged in defeat. What do you need from us? Admiral Chen's image smiled, and for the first time, there was genuine warmth in it. Help us build a better galaxy. Share your knowledge, your technology, your wisdom, not as conquerors but as partners. Teach other species what you've learned, just as we'll teach them what we've learned. And if we refuse? The aquatic overlord asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer wasn't one he wanted to hear. Then you'll be left behind while the rest of the galaxy moves forward. Chen replied matter-of-factly. We won't destroy you. That would make us no better than you were. But we won't let you hurt anyone else either. You'll be quarantined to your own worlds, free to live as you choose, but unable to threaten anyone else. The choice was clear, and every member of the council knew it. They could join the new galactic community as equals, or they could isolate themselves and become irrelevant. There was no third option because the humans had made sure of that. One by one, the council members began to nod their acceptance. The Krillian ambassador was first, his massive claws clicking in what his species used as a gesture of surrender. The Vorthan delegate's energy form pulsed with reluctant agreement. Even the proud War Master bowed his head in acknowledgement of defeat. Wise choice, Admiral Chen said. The galaxy has spent too long under the shadow of fear and oppression. It's time to step into the light. As the holographic projection faded, Zextai found himself looking around the chamber with new eyes. These beings who had ruled through terror and might were now just people, flawed, frightened people who had lost their way in the pursuit of power. Commander, the ethereal prime said quietly, you mentioned that the humans wanted you to deliver a message. What was it? Zextai straightened, remembering his duty one last time. They wanted me to tell you that Earth is under human protection, that any attack on their world would be considered an act of war, and that they would hunt down anyone foolish enough to try. He paused, then added his own observation. But I don't think that message matters anymore. I think the real message is much simpler. The age of empires is over. The age of partnership has begun, and if we're smart, we'll learn to thrive in this new galaxy instead of mourning the old one. Outside the council chamber, human ships maintained their perfect blockade, not as conquerors, but as guardians of a promise. Never again would any species have to face extinction alone. Never again would empires rise on the backs of enslaved peoples. Never again would the galaxy know the kind of fear that had driven the Imperials to conquest in the first place. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had won a war not by destroying their enemies, but by making it impossible for anyone to be enemies ever again. They had turned the galaxy's greatest weakness, its divisions and competition, into its greatest strength through unity and cooperation. As news of the surrender spread across the galaxy, species after species began to lower their weapons and extend their hands in friendship instead. The human example was contagious. Once beings saw that it was possible to be strong without being oppressive, safe without being aggressive, they wanted to learn how to do it themselves. And in the years that followed, as the galaxy began to heal from millennia of endless warfare, one lesson echoed across every world and every species. Never challenge humans unless you're prepared to discover what it truly means to face a species that refuses to give up, refuses to surrender, and refuses to let anyone else give up either. The warning had been delivered. The lesson had been learned, and the galaxy would never be the same again.